Hello there, this is Honest Klaud. I'm Eric Elliott, and I'm here with my guest, Daniel Soter. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yep.
Okay. AKA Jedi Master Daniel. You might add 96 if you feel like it.
Yeah.
You're a YouTuber.
Mm-hmm.
You get into conversations about Star Wars. I saw that you did a video with uh, at Chat.
Yep.
Um, I know this might sound petty, but it hurts my soul a little bit to say it like that because I'm a AT guy.
Oh yeah.
But he's a cool guy. I really haven't. He's someone that is uh, vocal about his issues with Star Wars, but he's never been toxic, and that's something I do appreciate.
Yeah.
Um, and I've said, do you think we know each other primarily through was it SSW Network or Bombadcast? I can't remember.
Combat cast.
Okay, so were we just well? I know I've been on the channel a few times, like as I actually show my face, but I think it's mostly through the chat situation, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you may have known me from a lot of the Bombad cast stuff and other people and all that gotta, jazz.
Yeah. And I've described to Pete from SSW Network, all these different channels kind of feel like a large family, but like cousins' households that you go over and you eat and you laugh. That's how it feels sometimes in
Yeah.
this like very very loose community.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, obviously, some of us have more clout name than others. Some of us, are more active than others. Some of us, like,
Yeah.
will go to the Star Wars celebrations.
Mm-hmm.
But as Nick Milky would say, it's a little too peoply, and it's a little too peoply for me as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does sort of feel that way. Like all the YouTube channels and podcasts sort of have this interconnectivity. Like it's almost like in a business kind of way, sort of thing, too, is a good way
Hmm.
to put it.
Yeah, it's uh, it has like a web of connection to other names. Like some guests I would definitely like to bring on that I the issue with me is like scheduling to catch certain people. Like I want to get Dan from Braxium, or I got Chris.
Hmm.
Uh, I got both main hosts of This is the Wayseekers. I got everyone from SSW Network, the three main hosts. Um, and I definitely need to get Scotty J. Rowe because I already got
Oh yeah,
Jerry.
you
And,
definitely need
and
that one.
yeah,
I mean,
it,
that
it
guy's a
doesn't
character.
it doesn't feel right to only have one.
Yeah, you got to get the full package. Yeah, I kind of feel that way too.
Yeah, and they're both like just uh, booming like energy, especially
Yeah,
Scotty.
they're like the
Um,
yin and the yang.
mhm. Like what was it when Jerry was on my channel? He gave me one of the most entertaining quotes I've had on my channel. So, for context, if you watch my channel, you know one thing I bring up a lot as a joke and as going into more conspiracy territory is the incestuous tension between Luke and Leia.
Hmm.
And I pointed out that even in modern canon, like, we're in the Disney era. This is on the heels of releasing of Force Awakens. We got a lot of, was our IDW comics?
IDW, yeah.
Yeah, IDW comics. And there's an issue where it's like a romp, kind of fun adventure between Luke, Leia, and some disposable characters that will probably will get shot. And when she is wearing a nice regale dress, you see Luke just gawk at her like
Mhm.
obsessively. And I thought it was interesting that you're finding writers still writing that simpness in Luke for Leia,
Yeah.
even after we know their blood relation. And like you expect that out of like Spinner of the Mind's Eye because that was made well before Return of the Jedi was released.
Yeah.
But uh, so I told that to Jerry, and he said, "quote That is the Pornhub generation writing Star Wars." So you can see like why I find that entertaining, and he's quite the character.
Yeah. They're quite the duo, I'd say.
Yeah. Um, so let's talk a little more about you. How did you get into Star Wars, and how has it evolved with you as a fan, and how do you see yourself in via the fandom?
With me, I mean, I got into it like through the prequels and all that. So I mean, I
Mm,
grew up, with the prequels. Phantom Menace was first ever movie I saw in a theater, and then obviously saw the Clone Wars movie when that came out, and then obviously was around. And it was quite something, when the Disney acquisition happened, when the announcement happened that we are going to get more. And then kind of when I look back with us, being in the post sequel trilogy era, it does feel like, 10, 15 years ago, we thought we'd never get a sequel trilogy, which is, crazy to think in retrospect now.
yeah.
Because I remember when the idea of new Star Wars movies was like a pipe dream.
Back when I was a kid and Revenge of the Sith came out, and subsequent years, even before we got any announcements through Disney, even before Disney bought them, I thought to myself, eventually we're going to have more movies. I don't know if they're going to be numbered movies, but we're going to get more movies. Because even
Yeah.
as a child, I was like, this franchise is too big to not
Uh
have
huh.
another movie. It doesn't matter who does it, it will happen.
Hmm.
Like I just couldn't imagine a world where that's even possible. Because you just got to think to yourself about the retrospective of how people felt that are from our previous generation, like Gen X, of like they didn't think there was going to be any more movies after the original trilogy, and
Yeah.
obviously that was quelled like 69 years later. And a lot of times you got to follow the murmurs of ideas in the sketchbooks of certain creators of like the possibility of happening, and also um, check on who's investing in toy sales because that is a huge reason why we got the prequel trilogy. Not saying that's a bad thing.
I
It's
just
just
get
the nature of business.
Yeah, and also I think when the Thrawn trilogy came out, that was a huge factor too, to show the interest in Star Wars was there as
Yeah,
well.
and the whole media blitz behind Shadow of the Empire. I would argue there's more introduction points for a wider audience.
Hmm.
Like, don't get me wrong, book readers, they're there. But it's something about a video game and that appeals more to like young people, like kids.
Yeah,
That's how you really get your hooks in to be like, oh, now we're really expanding. And they also released a bunch of toys. Thrawn Trilogy wasn't dropping toys like that.
yeah,
Not like
true.
Shadows of the Empire.
I would you could That's a good point because I think with Shadows, I think that showed more. There's even more interest.
Hmm.
As you said. I kind of wish they did something like that with the High Republic, to be honest.
Mm.
Because I
Yeah,
think
the closest thing we have is like references to the High Republic era and the last, Jedi game.
Oh, Jedi Survivor. But I was thinking
Yeah,
about more like why not give us High Republic toys of the characters from the books and comics?
I think the issue is that they went for like adult and like really kiddie for
Yeah.
the media blitz. It's just like, oh, we got books, which is really like chances are if you're like under 18, you're not going to read. Not because it's like too mature. It's just like a certain introduction point,
Hmm.
and you will get a little bit of the kids watching act like probably with like a parent or their family. But other than that, you just have like the Young Jedi cartoon, which is
Yeah.
definitely made more for like preschool age,
Yes.
which is totally fine. Like they deserve to have their entertainment as well, but
Yeah, it's true.
it's not. It's only going to appeal to so many people. Like they didn't make that show for adults in
Yeah,
mind.
like
It's just like
we just watch it because it's Star Wars.
yeah, like they made a show that uh, it, I make the dichotomy of like when a cartoon is a family show and when it's a kid show.
Hmm.
Usually with a kid show, not always, but it will rely more on toilet humor, or it feels more like Sesame Street style, like stare in your face. Here's the education.
Yeah.
And a family show just feels like we can all watch it, and it's not just something you put on to have the kids shut up.
Yeah. I think that would you say Clone Wars, Rebels, Bad Batch are more family shows and like Resistance appeals more to like elementary school level kids?
Uh, yes, I would say like Resistance, like kind of teeters in between those two. Like I wouldn't say they're perfectly. That show is perfectly in one camp. Like it's not like baby kitties, and
Yeah.
it's not quite true family show. And I think what was missing is like it doesn't have like the real dynamic and some of the stakes that you associate for more general action sci-fi as Rebels does. I think Rebels is probably the best at being a family series for a cartoon when it comes to Star
Yeah.
Wars.
And I always say
Yeah.
Rebels is like the best found family storyline.
As far as Star Wars, I think you have. I think it's hard to argue against that unless you go into like books, and but I'm not as well
Oh,
versed in that.
I was going
But
more like
if you're talking about series, I'll agree with
series.
you. I'll
Yeah.
agree with you there.
Yeah.
But it also benefits from having like they're basically just a bunch of people in like the same trailer car as a
Yeah.
spaceship, and they go off on various adventures.
Uh-huh.
And you also have the age differences, like obviously, was it Kanan and Hera are supposed to be like mom and dad, and Sabine and Ezra are supposed to be brother and sister who may or may not want to smash, and then you have Zeb who's like the grumpy uncle.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And I think with Clone Wars, if you watch like the movie and the earlier seasons, they have a lighter tone, then it gets darker as it
Mm,
progresses. Because I would
right.
say Clone Wars grew up with its audience.
I absolutely agree with that. Um, like the last season is nothing like. I mean, other than the characters, it's so different from the Clone Wars movie.
Yeah,
Like they almost feel like they are made by two different studios at a certain point.
yeah, true. And then Bad Batch is more made for the Clone Wars fans.
Um, Bad Batch has the found family appeal,
Hmm.
similar to Rebels does, because we have Omega and we
Yeah.
have her uh, 5 to 6 uncles.
Oh, yeah.
um, so if I'm going to have you up here, if you're not super familiar with my channel, I got to talk about my other conspiracies. And I swear I'm now nowhere near conspiratorial about real things in life. It's Star Wars. It just hits something.
Yeah.
uh, are you familiar with my Zillow Ray theory?
Nah.
Okay, so you know what a Zillow Beast is, right?
Yep.
You remember see him in Clone Wars and Bad Batch. So in Rise of Skywalker, we see that the Emperor has come back as a reanimated version. They've done all kinds of uh, evil, spooky dooky experiments to get him back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he can revive himself by absorbing energy. And he is the uh, clone, not grandfather, father to Ray. Uh, but anyway, blood related descendant is Ray of Emperor Palpatine.
Oh yeah.
So we also see in Clone Wars he takes an interest in the Zilla Beast.
Yep.
Zilla Beast is brought into Mount Tantus, the same organization that is heavily involved in evolving him back. I still believe that even though we saw like everything crash, someone saved one vial. One vial of blood was just someone in someone's pocket. Someone maybe have it in a lunchbox. I don't believe it's all destroyed. I don't believe it. Um, so if that's the case, was he genetically altered to be part Zillo to make him more powerful? If that's the case, Ray would be part Zillo.
Oh man, I don't know, man. It would be. I don't know. Like, I feel like to me, like I never bought into the Ray Palpatine thing in Rise of Skywalker. It kind of feels like a forced reveal, in my opinion.
It feels very fanficky,
Yeah.
like some things in it, some things in Rise of Skywalker when I was first watching it, I was just like, did they like plagiarize Mike Zero's
Yeah, I
bullshit?
feel like they just went through like a bunch of like fan theories on YouTube and all social media and everything.
So I have loose defenses for my theory. Okay, and they all have to deal with things that happen in the movies. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So you remember in Last Jedi, Rey fights the Praetorian guards, and she gets a bad scar on her shoulder.
Yeah.
Next movie is gone. Now you might say, "Well, Eric, there's a leather strap covering her scars." Well, it's the wrong place. It's too lowered. It's the Kylo Ren moving scar all over again.
Oh yeah.
And I said, isn't that very lizard like to just heal fully from a scar? Uh, we see that she's able to calm the Vexus snake in Rise of Skywalker.
Oh yeah.
Lizard recognized lizard.
Mm-hmm.
And in that same movie, when she sees the evil version of herself, the evil version of herself has sharp razor teeth, like a Zilla Beast does.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, this has become the thing I'm known for. Like everyone in Bombay Cast knows me as the Zillow guy. Everyone in SSW Network knows me as the Zillow man.
Oh yeah.
And you know what? I stand by it. Now, if this doesn't turn out to be true, I'm gonna be fine. I think sometimes the idea chasing is more fun than being told what it is.
Yeah.
Um, Now, this next theory, I don't know if I can be talked out of. So, my channel is named Honest Klaud.
Yep.
You know Klaud, right?
Yep.
Well, I told you that without Klaud, the resistance would be destroyed by the First Order slash Final Order.
Mm-hmm.
Can you guess why?
Because to know who the mole is.
Um, yes, that's a huge part of it. Um, because he's the only one taking care of the sparking section of the Millennium Falcon, which directly correlates to the hyperdrive.
Mm-hmm.
So if he's not taking care of it and being the only mechanic, then the hyperdrive would be just die out while they're trying to light speed skip.
Oh yeah.
Like you can't do that like 30 times and expect to be
Mm-hmm.
fine when the system is faulty.
Yeah.
So everyone on that ship will be evaporated if he wasn't there
Mm-hmm.
doing his job. So we do not get the message. We don't get to Lando, aka General Black Don't Crack, and get the necessary information for the next MacGuffin. He can't bring in the citizen fleet. Uh, we don't meet what is it Zori Bliss because
Mm-hmm.
Poe is the only one that has connection to Kijimi. So they're like fully unprepared. Even if they show up, there's no citizens fleet. Like that's the thing that saved their asses.
Yeah.
So Klaud is the key to all of this.
Oh yeah.
Does this make you feel different about Klaud?
I mean, I'd say it's plausible what you brought up. I mean, those are some
Right.
pretty good points.
Mhm. Now, you ready for the conspiracy that doesn't make sense? And I know it doesn't make sense, but it's too funny not to mention.
All right.
You know Mutt Williams?
Oh, from Indiana Jones? Yeah.
Okay, good, good. You know Snoke?
Yep.
Same person. All right. Let me explain this bad shit idea. All right. So, end of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Our heroes leave Akator, they leave Peru, they go back to America, have a wedding, and no one goes back to Akator. Which one of the characters seems like the one that would go back?
Mutt.
Exactly. He's still green around the gills. He got that little taste of adventure and of like his father's lifestyle. So he
Mm-hmm.
will go back. Either he will be abducted in Peru, America, or Soviet Vietnam. My assumption is that he would take like a chunk of painted like alien wall, like one of those murals that we saw in that movie,
Mm-hmm.
and he gets abducted by those same creatures, and he gets sent to a far distant galaxy where he's experimented on, where he starts looking more like them, gray and lanky. They put a cybernetic implant into his brain, scarring him, which taps into his anger of not having that true father figure in his life. So when he becomes a template of more pickled Snokes and becomes uh, the tempter of dark side for Kylo Ren, he lives vicariously through Kylo Ren because he's like, oh, your dad just looks like my dad. I want him to be dead.
Ha, a good one. That'd be funny. Maybe that in some bit that's the reason why he's not in Dial of Destiny.
Mm-hmm. Uh, it's been multiple reactions from other people. Jerry said that I hope he calls Emperor Daddy-O because he's a greaser,
Oh yeah.
or it's a greaser in a former life, as I would say. And maybe that he would comb his non-existent hairs with like a plastic comb dipped in Pepsi.
Oh yeah.
Brian said, you know, did he employ the mods because the mods are basically greasers in Star Wars?
Hmm.
And I said, well, maybe he would have like they would be mod like styled, but he'll call them like the Knights of Snoke.
Uh,
Uh, this is stupid, but like I kind of like the Knights of Snoke as greasers. That's just a funny visual.
yeah.
All right, I want you to speak more, so I'm going to throw some questions at you
Okay.
because you are my guest. Uh, let's talk about favorite, least favorite when it comes to the franchise. And I say least favorite because I try to avoid the word worst because I think it's negatively loaded.
Yeah, I could understand what you.
Yeah, it's like asking someone what's the worst movie in the original trilogy. Like, come on now, they're all good.
Yeah, I would
Uh,
say if I was probably to rank the original trilogy, I'd probably go Return of the Jedi, Empire, and New Hope.
Okay, so uh, well, that leads directly into one of the questions, like, what's your favorite and least favorite of the movies?
Whew, probably favorites. I'd have to go with like Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
Least favorite. Whew, I don't know because I was doing a marathon like in December, and then there was just something missing from watching The Force Awakens. Like I think there
Hmm,
just wasn't anything to it, to be honest. Like
interesting.
I think that magic wasn't there like from when it came out.
It's funny. Like, uh, for me personally, and like, Force Awakens is like one of my favorites.
Oh yeah.
Like, I rank it above the original trilogy.
Hmm.
Like, I acknowledge, like, I've heard every argument against it in the book. But at the same time, like, you just go into how you feel when you watch it, like what kind of emotions
Yeah.
it elicits. Like, you're there for the almost animalistic attraction to it sometimes.
Yeah.
But like, one thing that still impresses me that they did is just the quiet moments where we just see Ray's life before the call to adventure, where she's just on Jakku and she's a borderline
Yeah.
slave. Like, very rarely would you see like that much screen time dedicated to that, and I think it's just beautifully done. And just from seeing her struggle with that, like, immediately enamoured me to her as a character.
Yeah, I'd say that's like one of the strong points to it. Like
Yeah,
one of the
uh,
stronger parts.
but yeah, like, if I was just gonna say list my favorite, least favorite, favorite, I'm gonna say The Last Jedi, and my least favorite is the holiday special.
Oh, really? Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, Last Jedi is a
like.
good one too.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean that's a good one. I
Uh,
mean, I'd say Last Jedi is the best of the sequels and is a top three Star Wars movie.
mhm. Um, do you partake in books? Do you have a least favorite or favorite in that category?
Like I
Like
read so
novels?
much. Like I have a favorite would probably be Plagueis, but it's hard to pick a least favorite because sometimes you read so much and then you just forget about it, you know?
Can you mention at least one that you don't remember, like, really standing out to you when you read? It just kind of like rolled over.
I don't know. That's tough. I'm not sure off the top of my head, to be honest.
Okay. Um, See, I'm not a prolific reader when it comes to novels.
Yeah.
Uh, Part of it is my ADHD. So me reading a book just takes me a long time to read it, like many months to get through a novel. Like, I'm actively trying to get through some right now. Like, I just, when you're trying to really engage in Star Wars, you're just like rotating books at different times.
Yeah, I could have.
um, I would say right now, as like for me reading novels, my favorite is Shadow of the Sith by Adam Christopher,
That's a good one.
and so far my least favorite is the novelization of The Rise of Skywalker.
Hmm.
I think there's some great tidbits, and I'm not judging it based on my personal feelings on the movie. Really, it's
Ah,
just sometimes, like, because that's not what I'm there for. Like, I already know what the story is. Like, I know what the writer had to write, like,
yeah.
had to include. They had to put it in the plot. They can't do anything about that.
Hmm.
But sometimes the way you describe things can take you out of it. or you're just like, I wouldn't really describe it that way. I think you could have done that a little differently. Sometimes, descriptions aren't as clean. So it's been like a very up and down experience for me to read. Um,
Gotcha.
I feel like it's like right neck and neck for me for the Dark Saber book,
Yeah.
because once again, I think it has like really cool moments, and then it's just like, where are we going? Why are you writing like this?
Oh yeah.
Like Luke is like so like unbelievably like pathetic in that book. I mean, I love Luke, and Luke can be down on his luck. I love the Last Jedi, but it's just something about him like crying over like a computer wife.
Oh yeah.
It just feels a little weird.
Hmm.
Was it Callista
Yeah.
from the Legends universe?
Hmm.
Yeah, it's just odd, and I still don't know what the fuck an oily shadow is, but it's mentioned twice in the book.
Gotcha. Yeah, the thing with me, like reviewing books on my channel, sometimes like reading it, sometimes when you want to review it, it's kind of hard to keep that balance to like read it for the moment and then thinking about reviewing it. That's why I kind of took a step back on reviewing books, just because sometimes the reviewing part can be kind of a, like a delegation or something, like a
Mm,
commitment at times.
right. I've told someone before that the only way I could catch up with everything that's been released in Star Wars is if I'm rich and like every time I need food, it's just like sent to me. Like I
Yeah.
don't have to have any responsibilities in life. Things are just done for me, and I can just read and I mean, I would have already. I've already seen the movies, and I'm broke. So
All right.
movies wouldn't be an issue. Video games are pretty easy to get through, but there's just so many books. Like you telling me I had to get through some of these, is it like young adult novels of Qui Gon and uh, uh, Obi-Wan. There's like 30 of them.
Yeah. For me, it's
There's
more
so
like,
many.
yeah, for me, like reviewing them. I mean, I'm not making money off it on YouTube.
Right?
It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like, for me, sometimes when I was reviewing books, it kind of takes things away from you in the experience. Cause like sometimes while reading, like thinking about what to say, kind of, sort of it's hard to find that balance of enjoyment and thinking about what to say for a review.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I try to like. That's why maybe I'll do like a book discussion or comic discussion more casually on my channel nowadays because we're getting so much shows, and I prioritize more reviewing the shows more.
Yeah, I mean, those are the ones you're gonna obviously get more engagement from. Like, gonna have more people involved in the conversation. It's more of a cultural moment when
Yeah,
TV show or movie drops, rather than a book that you know. Let's keep it a buck. Some of these books are not going to be like remembered too well in a decade's time.
yeah,
and
true.
and that's not to throw shade at any of the writers, because a lot of them are like doing great things.
Hmm.
It's just sometimes that it's just the moment is trying to capture to get the audience. Like I don't know how many people are going to be reading the book Canto Bight. Don't get me wrong, I love Canto Bight, I love Last Jedi, but how many people
Yeah.
are going to be reading the Canto Bight book when I'm like an old man?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think. I mean, do you like review stuff on your podcast in a way? Like,
Uh, I tap a little bit into it. Usually, it's in like in these conversations I have with a guest. I used to do reviews of movies and TV like a lot more. I used to have a YouTube channel that I used to run called Krypton Critics. Sometimes I have my dad up there. But I started going away from it a little bit. Started doing other things.
yeah, that's why on my reviewing bit, I try not. I sort of do things more differently than, let's say, like what a film critic or book critic would do.
Hmm.
and try to say like try to be a little too. I'm not that guy that has to be so getting all about these little things, like picky about these little things of being a film or book critic or TV critic. I just
Hmm.
speak more in a general sense and then kind of just give whatever stood out.
Right. Um, do you have a favorite or least favorite when it comes to characters?
Um, Favorites is probably like Luke, Ahsoka, and Anakin, but I'm not
Hmm.
sure on least favorites.
See, like my immediate go-to is like Zero the Hutt.
Oh, really?
Like I really don't care for Zero the Hutt.
Oh, yeah. Nope.
Like it just like my annoying tolerance is like pretty high, but it's just something about his like I mean, literal sliminess and like I just don't think there's really anything interesting other than like he's like an alien that's supposed to be like Truman Capote. Like it's just so odd.
Mm,
Like he's supposed to be like has Mardi Gras feathers. I'm just like, why?
all right.
Like you could tell George was just like, I just want to have things from different archetypes. I just want to throw them in. Just throw them in.
Oh, yeah.
We're gonna have a diner in space. We're gonna have the bellhop waitress as a robot. You just throw it in.
Hmm.
Uh, do you have favorite least favorite for comic books?
Oh, man, that's a good one. I feel like my list changes on comics as well. I think favorite, I'd probably gonna say one is the Legends Republic series, like the pre, like or like one of the pre 2008 Clone Wars stories.
Okay.
Yeah, that's probably that one's like
Oh,
god tier
like
Star Wars.
like Genny Tartakovsky, Clone Wars.
Yeah, with that there was like a big Clone Wars multimedia project around that time.
All right.
Obviously, before the Filoni Clone Wars.
Yeah, yeah. I really like that show. It's the same feel like Samurai Jack.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind Gendy Tartakovsky coming back to Star Wars at some point.
Yeah. I anyway, one of
It's
the
a good
issues I
one.
have with the sequel trilogy, not in individual movies, is just the way they're paced as far as like timeline.
Hmm.
Like everything happens in a year. Everything. Like the Force Awakens and Last Jedi have like what is it like a 30-hour like time jump?
Somewhere in there.
Yeah, and then we get to Rise of Skywalker is only like just a year.
Yeah,
So the First Order rises and they become the Final Order at the last moment, and then they everything crashes in like a year. Like god damn. At least the Empire was around for like 20 years before like things started like going haywire. Like come on now. And the issue with doing that is that it's hard to fit a lot of stories in between that time.
I agree with you there. And I think that's a thing, what I would say, if you told me like with the prequels versus the sequels, I think the prequels have better lore than the sequels do, in my opinion, because I felt like
Hmm.
the sequels kind of need a lot more like stuff to fill their lore. That's why I'm kind of like clamoring for the next animated show to tie more into the sequel trilogy, kind of like how where Clone Wars kind of made more people appreciate the prequels. I'm kind of hoping that for a future Star Wars animated show set between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens that makes people appreciate the sequels more. And I think the Mando verse will have an effect on that too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it already has. I think people are more comfortable with the idea of Palpatine coming back because of all the seeds that have been placed in that show,
Mm-hmm.
and some people are more like understanding. I mean, you still get fans that are upset, but you get like the more you get regs. So just like, oh, that's how the First Order came to be, and how the Republic, New Republic, start faltering.
Yeah.
Um, So yeah, I think it's a good way to try to bridge the content, and of course, you know, you can't go wrong with throwing in Zellen's Baba Frick's race in the last season. Like everyone
Yeah,
loves
and then the
that
Praetorian
little
Guards
guy.
in there too.
Yeah, yeah, they did have some Praetorian Guard flavor in that last season too. You're right.
Yeah, and I think that's what I think. Say maybe the Mandalorian and Grogu will plant the seeds, and Ahsoka season 2 and Skeleton Crew would. And what that's what I'm kind of hoping. Like the next
Oh,
animated show is like something that's set in that 30-year time gap.
yeah, and that's why I was saying that, you know, I wish the sequel trilogy had at least one gap in it that's more than a year,
Yeah.
and you could throw in a Genndy Tartakovsky style animated series with our iconic characters of, you know, Poe, Finn, Ray, yada yada,
Hmm.
and like you would give people that time to really digest those characters more, because uh, like say what you want about, I mean, anyone say what they want about the sequel trilogy. One thing that the sequel trilogy absolutely fucking nailed is that they made characters that you immediately attach to,
Hmm.
and I think that's one of its strongest things it has. I would argue that our trio, like our main trio, is m- more magnetic. Once again, this might be give me in trouble with some Star Wars fans. I would argue that the big three of the sequel trilogy is more magnetic, just in their own movies, than the original trilogy with Luke, Han, and Leia. I
Hmm.
know that's bold. I know it's a bold claim, but I sincerely believe it. And of course, this is just my opinion. Like, it's just, if someone said, you know what, Eric, I disagree, I'm not going to fight back. I'm just like, well, you know, it's just how I feel. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I could kind of see. I felt like the characters had charm to them. I think,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's it.
Um,
Also with Go ahead.
I think part. I know this might sound strange, but part of, like, you know, how strong the characters are is how uh, quickly and fervently there people are to make fanfics about them, and especially ship them.
Yeah.
And there was just like, I know we're in a different era, like
Hmm.
we're not in the '70s and '80s, but
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't think there would be this much fervor for be like, oh, we got Ray and Poe, Finn Poe, like all these link ups of people's minds. And people, even regular people, that going into it, is just like, oh, are we going to have some Raylo? Like Raylo is like a commonly used term now. Like,
Yeah.
it's not just in archive of our own discords. Like,
Hmm.
it's just like regularly accepted terminology in the Star Wars sphere. I think if we have like the same characters of the original trilogy in, like, this was their introduction point, I don't, and the whole story is exactly the same. I don't think we would get that much as we did for these movies.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It probably could be the era too we're living in. You know.
Yeah, that's why I said we were not in the '70s and '80s. Like,
Yeah.
it's different, but, you know, like Star Wars fans and, you know, nerds in general just always think about, what if that had happened? What
Hmm.
if?
Yeah.
Um,
And it
so
also with the TV show Resistance, I rewatched it and it kind of added a bit more to the sequel lore with it being 2 seasons. And I actually do wish it got more, to be honest.
yeah, I think it didn't have its time to truly shine and to grow up with its audience.
Yeah.
It didn't have, it had nowhere near the amount of episodes of Clone Wars, not even the amount that Rebels does. And I would
Yeah.
argue that Rebels follows a similar formula of, it becomes more mature.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think that that is a shame, and I think ultimately what they needed is that they needed to have more stakes in the show. It
Yeah.
felt way too. not safe as in creatively safe. Just like it felt like nobody could possibly die.
Okay, yeah, with the show, it felt more. I mean, I know it was trying to go to the younger audience, but I know it is like underrated and a lot of people overlook it for Star Wars
Hmm.
animation. Like they don't look at it in the same way of Clone Wars, Rebels, and Bad Batch in a way.
Yeah, I mean, it gave us some characters that I really do enjoy. Yeager's great. Um, I love Hype, Donald Faison's character,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and uh, I think my favorite character would be either Yeager or Tordoza. Like
Yeah, they're
I
good
think,
ones.
like honestly, I think the show would be better if like Tordoza was the protagonist.
Oh, really? I liked
Yeah.
Kaz actually, and I mean Christopher Sean's a good guy. Like he's very like interactive with the fans. Like he's like that
Yeah,
guy
I got
that's
no like I got no beef with the actors. You know, the only
yeah,
time I have a beef with an actor is like if they're like generally like a crappy person. But
yeah,
like he's just like doing an acting thing. He's engaging with the fans. He loves the fact that he's in Star Wars, and
yeah.
he's very clear that he never takes it for granted.
Mm-hmm. Christopher Sean. He's kind of like the guy who played Ezra in Ahsoka, Iman or whatever you pronounce it.
Hmm.
He's like that kind of sense. Like they're very like interactive with the fans.
Right, right. Um, so you mentioned your favorite comic. Do you have like least favorite comic?
I'm not too sure. Kind of like what you.
I got one.
What is it?
See, comics are something that I can read quickly.
Uh
It also
huh.
has pictures, so it can help retain my attention. Um, the Mara Jade solo series from the
Oh,
late '90s.
yeah, I know what you're
Uh,
talking about.
it just bores me.
Uh,
Like I don't have any real hangups with her as a character. I just like if I need something if I need to like help myself sleep, I'll start reading it.
uh,
And I don't want to be mean to like the person that worked on it. It just doesn't excite me.
yeah.
Uh, so same question, but for as Hank Hill would say, the video games.
The video games.
Yeah,
Uh,
video games for
Not much of a
least fave.
gamer, but favorite Battlefront 2, 2005.
I've played that a lot back in the day, so I'm very familiar.
Oh yeah, great
Um,
game.
uh,
I probably played it multiple times, like so many times.
I mean, I sucked at it, but I was having fun.
Oh yeah.
It was one of the two games that, maybe one of the three games that, had my dad say, it doesn't matter what game you play, Droidekas are hard to defeat.
Hmm.
It was that game. It might have been maybe a little bit of. I don't remember if there was any Droidekas in the Revenge of the Sith game, but they were definitely in there for the Lego Star Wars game,
Oh
where you
yeah.
had to like jump on top of him and stab.
Hmm. Yeah.
uh, yeah, it brings back memories. I get a little tingle every time I hear the loading screen, like whoop 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 whoop.
Oh yeah, that's the '04 game.
Uh, uh, that's not '05. I get confused
I don't
between
think
them.
they do it in the '05 in the 2005 game, but in the 2004 game they do what you just mentioned.
Uh, See, they're missing out.
Yeah.
It's like the what do you call it when they play music when you start a console?
Well,
Is
I'm
it
not
like
sure.
opening music?
Yeah, I guess so.
The opening music to the PlayStation 2 is like so great. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I'm an Xbox guy.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't say that. I'm not saying that as being rude. Like I'm not. I'm not in the war. I haven't had a
Yeah,
console
I'm
since I was
not in that
14.
war either. What's better, Xbox or PlayStation?
Yeah, yeah. I don't have any battle scars.
Yeah, I just have a console and that's it, you know? Like that's it. We just have a console and that's it. Like we don't care which one it is.
Mhm. So I'm guessing if you're not much of a gamer, you don't have a least favorite.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't like in the 2015 Battlefront how you had to pay for upgrades and all that.
Oh,
It just seemed pointless.
I even though I didn't pay for any of it myself, like I've never been a fan of the microtransaction kind of thing. It's like
Yeah.
EA just milking the audience like way too much.
Uh-huh.
I'm not a fan.
Yeah. I've just
Uh,
felt like it felt like paying for a mobile game.
yeah, it's like you're playing a console version of Clash of Clans.
Yeah.
Oh, I can show off my other things. Like I got the Swole Jar Jar. I'm very happy that I found this.
Where'd you get that at?
I found out at a thrift store like swap meet.
Oh,
I,
nice.
I just looked down and I'm just like, yo, look at that Jar Jar, Dad. It is yoked. And I got a library book of a sequel trilogy era book that maybe I'll get through. I got too many things I'm reading.
Yeah, yeah. That one was, I think, quite a good one from what I remember.
And one of the reasons that I picked it up is because uh, like I'm a big fan of Rose, and
Uh,
like I was like so disappointed about like how she basically does nothing in Rise of Skywalker.
yeah, that was like
Like,
one of the big issues with Rise of Skywalker as well. Like how they underused her.
uh, I got two funny anecdotes when it comes to that.
Hmm.
One is that I mentioned that she also appears in the Christmas Lego special,
Oh, yeah.
and she has more dialogue as a Lego than in Rise of Skywalker,
I
like
know.
exponentially more.
Hmm.
And another thing is that when I told Ma that she stays on the base to look at schematics, Ma said, "Oh, she had to wash her hair."
Oh, yeah.
A chuckle out of me.
Yeah. Do you
Um,
think like she could appear in the Ray movie?
I hope she does. Like I think a good evolution of her character is that she gets into like politics.
Yeah.
Like she gets into like a senatorial role, that kind of thing. Maybe as like a speaker.
Yeah, I could see her and Poe appear in that sort of role in the Ray movie, but I
Right.
do see Finn playing a big part in the Ray movie, and I think they'll finally give John Boyega his wish.
Of doing some Jedi action.
Yeah, like I think it is. Like I think they're gonna give John Boyega what he wanted in the Ray movie. I have a good feeling about it.
Hmm.
I think it's a very good possibility that we see Jedi Finn in the Ray movie.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past him, especially since it's this. We're having a little bit of a time jump. Finally,
Yeah.
we're having a time jump. I mean, I assume we will have the new Republic,
Yeah, that's
whatever
what I'm
they're going to
trying
call
to figure
themselves.
out. Like, what will the factions be like post Rise of Skywalker?
Like I've thrown out an idea. Like I mean, obviously, I'm just some Star Wars nerd that writes Star Wars fanfic. Like I don't have any. I don't pull any strings of creatives in Lucasfilm.
Hmm.
But like an idea that popped in my head is that imagine if you know, like we have a new system of government, but like they just become more oppressive, but they're not. They don't like the empire. They're
Hmm.
just more oppressive because they are so filled with uh, fear of the Sith or the Empire coming back that they like hunt. anyone that's associated with them down.
Hmm.
Like they start having internment camps for the Sith. Like the idea of wanting to make everything good just goes too far, where they
Yeah.
start doing harm. Because I think that's relatable in like a modern context of like not your traditional like fascist empires, just like governments that are just driven by trauma.
Probably be a good idea.
Mhm. And you can have someone like Rose and maybe Poe, maybe in senatorial positions, and they try to reform it from the inside instead of just trying to fight off the military faction. Have it in both directions
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like a lot of times in the movies, particularly, they make the bad guy military like just completely lock in step with like everything about the government. Like
Yeah.
there's not even like a bubble of like separation of just like, well, there's good people in power, there's bad people in power. Like they don't have time to really get into that. Like the books get into that. Sometimes like we get glimpses of it in like TV shows like Andor.
Yeah.
Um, but it's just not enough time. We need to get to the adventure. We need to get to the Sith Jedi conflict.
Yeah, and I actually think Andor is the best of the live action shows because it showed us a lot of the depth of Star Wars
Mm-hmm.
and like a lot of like the politics of everything too.
Mm-hmm. Now, one that I did not include, you alluded to is shows. So obviously, Andor is your favorite, and I saw in your list on Twitter, I don't want to call it the new name, that your least favorite is Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Was it just not clicking for you?
I don't know. I didn't like how it became how they had two episodes of The Mandalorian in there. It just didn't seem
Mm-hmm.
right. That's why I felt like Book of Boba Fett was disjointed.
I'll agree with
In
that.
my opinion, I felt like the show should have been more of an anthology series, like instead of like, being this Mando spin-off. Like, why not? You could have
Mm-hmm.
had those Boba Fett centric episodes and then told stories in other parts of the timeline, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Why not have like some
See,
episodes
maybe
where
maybe their mistake was calling it, putting his name in the title.
yeah, that's another way to put it. Maybe they
Maybe
could
if
have
they advertised it differently,
yeah.
less people would be upset. Like if they called it, this is just off the cuff. This name is terrible, but like Mandoverse, like stories.
Yeah, or just say Book of Boba Fett, a Mandalorian story.
Yeah, I guess I mean, they both are Mandalorian. Um,
And another thing I
both.
felt like they could have added, like I know that I think one thing I think the Mandoverse, maybe this is kind of maybe they jumped the gun in this aspect, is them trying to replicate Marvel in a way, I think. You
Mm.
know?
Oh, are you talking about like their output in just like streaming? Here's this connected universe kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe they could have maybe if they were going this approach, maybe they could have called everything had everything under one branch and called it made it all one show and called it the New Republic. Like they could have done like
Mm,
a Clone Wars type of show where it's anthology. It's not about, the main characters. Yeah, how Clone Wars had episodes about different characters. Maybe they could have done that approach, maybe.
I'm not against that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like it's only right to talk about the acolyte a little bit
Uh-huh.
because that's what's on everyone's lips nowadays. It just concluded. How do you feel about the show and overall takeaways?
I liked it actually. I felt like it was a good solid start to like telling stories beyond the Skywalker saga. like going 100 years before, and then kind of introducing the High Republic on screen, regardless if you read a book or not. I think
Mm-hmm.
it was for someone to enjoy, and I think the only criticism I had was maybe some episodes could have been a bit longer, in my opinion. But other than that, good show, and I'd say a good start to a new era on TV.
Mm-hmm. Uh, um, I'm not in the school of thought that it's a bad show. I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of things that it does offer, a lot of
Hmm.
discussions it brings that we don't normally get into Star Wars, um, and so some characters that I think are pretty cool.
Hmm.
But you know, when I talked about this with Scotty Holiday, I said that the problem with me isn't that these aren't characters I'm familiar with, and that's why I'm not really jumping up and down for it. Uh, because I was way more engaged with the first episode of Mandalorian. I didn't know any of those characters.
Yeah.
Like it immediately hooked me. I immediately felt it. I was like, "Let's go."
Hmm.
There was never that true moment I felt with this series.
Uh,
Um, like I don't care really that Kelnaka died. I didn't
yeah.
really get anything from him. I didn't care that Corbin died. Matter of fact, I was mad suspicious of him before we got the reveal of like all the things that Soul did bad. Like I remember I was
Yeah.
watching the show with my dad, and the episode ended. It was like what was it? The third episode is when we see the first flashback episode,
Yeah.
and I said the white boy did it. And my dad was like, "What?" And I said, "Dad," I'm like, he was so wrought with guilt, it destroyed his hairline.
Yeah.
And of course, like he Avengers Endgame himself
Hmm.
because he wanted to. And I was like, no, if you do that, you got a lot of regrets. A lot of regrets. You feel guilty about something.
Yeah. And
Um,
I
I
think the
mean,
thing with the Acolyte, I like how it added more to the lore. Like I felt like they did a really good job at acknowledging stuff from other media, like the Barrage Val, the lightsaber bleeding, the mention of
right.
the hyperspace disaster, and the appearance of Vanestra Rowe. I felt like it was made by people that actually were aware of lore outside of movies and shows.
Yeah, I can't speak too much on the lore when it comes to High Republic because I've read a little bit of a comic, I read a little bit of a novel. I watched one episode of the Young Jedi Adventures. My induction is pretty low. I know about the Nile. I know about the Great Catastrophe thing. I know a few characters,
Yeah.
but like if and sometimes you got to think about how does the series feel to just normies.
Yeah.
Normies aren't going to know who the fuck Vanessa Rowe is,
Yeah, they ain't gonna know
and
she's a book character.
yeah, and I really don't know that much about her. But if I'm just watching the show, I'm like, I really don't like her. If she were to die, I'm just like, okay.
Yeah.
And I don't want to have to say that, but like that's just my genuine feeling. And I think a big part of it is that we don't have the time to get attached to some of these characters.
Hmm.
Some of these characters' motivations aren't clear to the audience sometimes.
Yeah.
Like at one moment, May is like, "I'm gonna surrender myself because I've done wrong and I killed Jedi." Right.
Hmm.
Next moment, she's fighting Jackie to be arrested. I'm
Uh-huh.
like, what? Like, I shouldn't have to do like a sane amount of theorizing to try to understand what the character is. It should be a little more clear. It should be also presented more excitingly. And like I'm not just saying this like talking out of my ass because like I work on scripts myself. Like I understand it a little more. Like when I'm giving criticism, like I'm genuinely trying to help. I'm not just gonna say you suck and just walk away. And I think a lot of too many Star Wars fans do that, and it's very unproductive.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I just think there's a way to like really just like I'm here, I'm glued to the screen. Like another series, like a drama I'm watching, where I'm really invested, and I went in cold, not knowing any of the characters. I didn't even know it was based on a book. I've been watching the TV Shogun. I think it's phenomenal. I'm like so invested, and there's never a moment where I'm bored watching it.
Yeah.
Fortunately, there was a few moments when watching Acolyte, I was a little bored. I'm just like, okay, let's get it rolling.
I think the
Um,
thing is that's why I support like the Acolyte getting a second season because they could really flesh out so much in a way.
yeah, it's of course if it comes out, I'm gonna watch it. I'm a Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
I enjoy the guy who played the Stranger. I think he's good.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've been watching Mendel Steinberg back in like Hunger Games era. uh,
Yeah.
so like and even if they brought back some of the characters that they killed for like extra cameos, like I'm down for it. I
Yeah.
wouldn't mind seeing more Indara.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel
Carrie Ann
like
Moss is great.
yeah, and I think that's the thing. Like that's why I'm open to the Acolyte having a second season because I think there's potential they can do and do all these different unexpected things they could surprise us with. In my
Mm.
opinion, that I mean, I do support the Renew the Acolyte campaign because there is a good point for a second season. For example, I don't see Obi-Wan having a second season because what else can you tell in that era with the character?
I think it's well storybooked. I think it felt complete.
Yeah.
Didn't feel like it needed to do anything else.
Hmm.
Anything else you can get from a book, and
Yeah.
I went into the series thinking to myself, I'm like, did we really need to see him fight Darth Vader again? But I
Yeah.
was pleasantly surprised. It's
Hmm.
my favorite live action series, and
Oh,
I
that's
acknowledge it. I acknowledge that there's issues with some of the editing, and like it definitely would flow better as a movie. I agree with both those critiques,
hmm
but it's just the most I've felt engaged.
yeah.
Andor, I think, is great. I think it's well done. I think it's fantastic, but at the same time, it doesn't uh, always be really truly drive with me.
Hmm.
Like I think because Obi Wan has a variety of flavors going into it,
Uh-huh.
and Andor is a lot of depressed, 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 depressed,
Yeah.
which phenomenally written. No argument there. I think if someone would ask me what is the best, I would say that. But we're emotional beings.
Yeah.
Once again, if another season happens, I'm gonna watch it,
Same here.
and I truly hope it does appeal to me more. I hope I'm more on my seat because there were moments I was really into it. The fight with the stranger and all those red shirts, like Yord and Chucky.
Yeah.
I was like really good to the screen.
Hmm.
But the whole tease about Plagueis, I didn't care. Plagueis has never been a character I've ever been attracted to. I know part of it is I never read his book. I'm sorry, dog. I didn't read your book. I don't know. I don't know how you are in the streets. I missed out. But if I'm just looking at this as a show, I'm just like, it's just some creepy dude who's a Sith guy who looks behind a rock. That's what I have. I know he's attached, connected to the Emperor. There's the whole thing of, did you know he tried to create life? Like I know the monologue. I know it. Whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, I
So
wasn't sure if I
I
lost you.
was listening. I'm just like I don't know what to say. I'm trying to think. But yeah, like as you said, I think it would be good for the Acolyte to be have a second season or I mean, kind of anything in that era would be good as well. Like, because I was going in, I wouldn't be surprised if this became the new flagship series for Disney Plus as The Mandalorian's going to the bigger screen.
Mm, I, hmm, I don't know if it quite has the legs to pull it off. I mean, I've been proven wrong,
Mhm.
but just from what I see, like I don't see it like being quite the same smash hit as like Mandalorian. Like
Yeah,
Mandalorian brought out everybody. Like it was like a cultural movement when the first season came out.
yeah. And I think the thing
It,
with Mandalorian, lot like people got attached to Grogu, like regardless how big of a fan you were. Like even if you weren't a Star Wars expert, people got into him.
the only people like went into Rise of Skywalker saying, "Where's Baby Yoda?"
Oh yeah,
Like it's just like a lot of people like question. Like even in my own family, like my mom didn't watch The Mandalorian, but she knew Grogu,
yeah.
and she thought that Grogu was literally a baby version of Yoda, like him in the past, because she
But
didn't have
then
the
it's
context. Because like we still don't know what his alien race is called.
yeah,
All right.
and that's the thing, because and I think that's the thing with it. Like I think because you had a lot of like casuals, called him Baby Yoda, and then like even if
Then he
these
steals a
people
million
that still
toys.
call him Baby Yoda today, I cringe. I'm like, he
You
hasn't
cringe
been
at
since
that?
Grogu.
I don't get hung up on that.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's what kind of got people sold into Mandalorian because of it being the first live action Star Wars show, and then the surprise of Grogu got everyone into it. And I think with Acolyte, we're kind of well established with live action Star Wars shows, and because there isn't like a that familiar aesthetic, like we had with Mandalorian, because Mandalorian has
Mhm.
that very original trilogy aesthetic where the Acolyte, is set in the High Republic, which, a lot of, casual fans wouldn't know what the High Republic is.
Right. Yeah, I just remember that we're not going to have any more call weathers for any more Manos
Yeah,
installments. That made me sad.
yeah, I agree there.
Do you have any questions about me or my channel or some of the ideas I've posed?
Oh, so I actually got a question for you. So, what's your favorite Star Wars movie of each trilogy?
Hmm. Uh, Phantom Menace, Return of the Jedi, Last Jedi.
Oh, same. I have the same as you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and what's
But
your favorite of the standalone movies?
Rogue One.
Same here.
Uh, like I enjoy Solo more than like like a lot of the fandom has. Like I remember when the movie ended when I was in theaters, and I was like, oh, when we're going to do another or a spin-off TV show. Like I'm still looking forward to that Lando series. Come on, Donald Glover. Like I know you're hot commodity in doing everything, comedy, music,
Mhm.
Atlanta, but we need you for Lando just one more time, just one more
I
time.
agree. And bring back Alden Ehrenreich as well as
Yeah,
Han.
because they're like we're getting at the point where they're going to be the same age as both of the actors in the original trilogy.
Yeah. That's the
Because
thing.
I'm
I
like,
think Solo is a very underrated Star Wars movie. I'd
oh
say
yeah,
the most
absolutely.
underrated since The Phantom Menace.
Mhm. What is it? Don Glover is already 40,
Yeah.
and what is it? Billy D. Williams was almost 50 when Empire came out.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed that we won't see Billy D, but we'll just like hear him do like one monologue. I think that would be like maybe at like the end of the show. I think that'd be like a
Mm.
good tie-in to the generations.
Yeah. I feel like Lando will be the closest thing we'll get to a Solo 2. And I
Right.
wouldn't mind if we got a Crimson Dawn series. Like, I feel like you could do that in the vein of Andor.
Yeah, especially since Emphas Nest is a character that we don't know too much about. She doesn't like the actor doesn't have any original trilogy counterpart, so you can
Yeah.
just keep going with her. Like there's nothing. You're just like, oh, we got to do some de aging with this actor who's like, we don't know when they're gonna die. Like we don't have to do any of that.
And
You just
same
like
with
keep going.
Kira as well.
Yeah, and Kira, they've been doing a lot of stuff in the comics, and I think they could hell they could do an animated series with her, and I
Yeah.
think that would be dope.
Or even bring her in a live action show as well. Like,
Yeah, I'm here for it.
yeah.
Hell, you could throw in whatever Mandalorian thing comes out next.
Yeah, that could do that. That's what I'm saying as well. Like they could bring these characters in the Mandoverse.
Mhm. Like
Yeah, like that's
you just said it a few years later, and you don't have to worry about too much wardrobe and makeup because like there would already be that rough age by that point.
yeah. And another thing, because yeah, as you said, you enjoy Solo a lot more than the fans do. Because that's the thing too. I like probably would pick Rogue One for favorite standalone movie, but I wouldn't put Solo that far behind. As I said, and I did say it is the most
Interesting.
underrated Star Wars movie since The Phantom Menace. And probably out of the modern Star Wars movies, is probably the one that captures the George Lucas feel too.
I mean, he did want to make a solo movie
Yeah,
around the time of Revenge of the Sith because he was going to introduce like it was like a 10, 11-year old to be
yeah,
Han Solo in that
hmm,
movie, just like hanging out with the Wookiees and Kashyyyk.
yeah,
See, wouldn't it be crazy if like they had they had done that? Like they had a cameo with that kid, and that kid was Alden Ehrenreich, and this wasn't like a recast. That would be
yeah.
insane if they were able to plan that out ahead of time.
Hmm. Oh yeah, yeah, because he did commission a Han Solo movie before the Disney acquisition as well.
Mm, yeah,
Because he says in what the thing he says how he has treatments for the sequel trilogy and a bunch of other movies, which probably is the Han Solo movie commissioned and probably Indiana
right.
Jones 5.
Mm. Like all these fanboys are crying about Disney destroyed everything that George wanted, and like they've done like multiple things and greenlit and made movies of ideas he had,
Yeah.
premised like big plot points of Luke being a hermit,
Uh huh.
being depressed. Like that was his idea.
Yeah.
Like like they clearly just want to have a punching bag because there's plot elements they didn't like. And
Yeah.
instead of rationalizing it and like really maturing with it and saying, well, why did they do this? Is there benefit to doing this? They're just like they lash out.
Yeah. And another thing that a lot of people don't realize that Ryan Johnson mentored Dave Filoni on how to do live action.
Hmm. Small world.
Yep.
Uh, is what's the character that you think you might be the biggest fan of in your state or country?
Ooh, that is a tough one.
If you want to make it simple on yourself, you can do city.
Yeah, maybe like I probably would know a little more about Luke than most people would. Like I bet you a lot of my non-Star Wars fans would know who Mara Jade is. And I bet you I probably know a lot more about Ahsoka than most of my non-Star Wars friends would. They probably don't know that she was Anakin's
I'm
girlfriend.
looking more for lesser known characters like
Oh, oh no.
like what's that one glup shido you're just like mm, no one understands them like I do.
Oh, that's a tough one.
And I've admitted that this is a question I've stolen from Alex Damon.
Oh, really? Well, you
Yeah,
got it
yeah,
from Star Wars Explained.
yeah.
I don't know, man. It's quite tough, but
Yeah, I have my own answer.
go ahead with yours.
Ruse Tarples.
Uh
Rouge Tarples, I definitively think I am the biggest fan of this character in my state. I am just obsessed with his character. I kind of view him as like if Jar Jar is Luke, then he's Obi-Wan Kenobi.
yeah.
He's the one that watches him because seemingly Jar Jar Binks is like an orphan, right? Like at least in canon,
Yeah.
because like we don't know what the whole situation about whether or not uh, George Binks or whatever his dad's name is in canon possibly shooting himself.
Mhm.
Like there's a lot of questions, and I've been working on a Jar Jar fan novel, and like I make their relationship way richer. Um, I wonder if like when I see him die in Clone Wars, I actually feel sad this time. With all the ideas that came up with him, is that he's just trying to usher him into manhood, teach him about militancy, treat him to be an upstanding citizen, but also gives him the tough love of understanding prejudice against Guggins.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, mine was probably a tough one to answer because I'm just not sure off the top of my head.
Hmm. Um, yeah, and there's a solo character named Warrior Junis.
Oh, yeah.
She's like uh, truancy officer on Corellia.
Mm,
I can't even find her in the movie, and she has like strong Dolores Umbridge energy, just kind of an
gotcha.
asshole lady.
Right.
And I think I'm default the biggest fan of her in the world because who the hell knows who this is?
I think another one. Wait. I think I may have one. It might be Weasel from Phantom Menace and Solo because I don't
Okay,
think
all
the
right.
average person knows they're the same character.
Yeah, like like unless you're a big fan of the actor, you probably don't know that.
Yeah,
You ready for Glup Shadow time?
I guess so.
All right. Are you familiar with the character of North One?
Nah.
All right. Would you like me to explain him first
Go
or show you a
ahead.
picture first?
Ah, you could do both.
All right. Well, here's a picture of the character.
Hmm. That's Andor, right?
Yep, he's in the middle here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. North One was a human who served on the Preox Morlana Corporate Tactical Forces, aka the Blues, or as Marvel calls them, the Bastards. In 5 BBY, he led the North team in the ambush to Ferrix. He gives a smirk when Mosk speaks and a look at this fool, subtle energy, when Cyril Korn speaks. His team handcuffed Bix Galeen. When Tim Carlo showed up, North One warned North One to, for both of them to stop. But North One shoots Tim Carlo. Says North Three shoots Tim Carlo and kills him. And he's the one that tells North Three to get onto the pod to turn on the radio. The one, and that's the pod that gets like caught up in the cord and crashes. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, kind of, yeah.
Because they set up a trap with the workers,
Yeah.
and with that explosion, we get Brasso saying "shit," first canonically used on live action Star Wars,
Mm-hmm.
and North One sending out North Three like sets up the dominoes for Andor to be able to escape. So that's his importance to the wider universe.
Mm.
So, how do you feel about North One? Is he starting to ring more bells of like how everything went down in the episode?
Yeah, maybe. And maybe I'll have to catch this on a Andor rewatch at some point. Like put that all into perspective, you know?
Yeah, what attracted me to this character is like the actor is like very subtle with his performance when like he's trying not to laugh. Like it's almost impossible to notice it, but like somehow you still like it gets across. And he's the one that is really selling this energy of like, oh, this is awkward while the superiors are speaking, and I really appreciate that. Um, Another reason that I wanted to bring him up is that he's the first black person to have had a Cyclops Shadow.
Mm.
And when I was going to have another possible guest, like I was like, oh, well, I timed this right to be exactly on Juneteenth, but it didn't work out that way. Either way, but he's still like just like a little interesting flavor he brings. Like his intensity when he's yelling at North 3. Like he helps ground the show that's already grounded. Like it
Yeah.
feels so tangible when he's on screen and giving orders and trying not to laugh. Um, do you think we will see a reappearance of this character and maybe in Andor season 2? Would you like to see him mentioned in like maybe a novelization of Andor or hell, maybe something else entirely? Imagine if he shows up in second season of Ahsoka.
You never know. Anything's possible. I mean, I think Andor season 2 could be plausible, and I know like Andor is season 2 is gonna bounce around more.
hmm
Yeah, so you never know. I mean, anything's possible. I mean, I trust
Right,
Tony Gilroy will wrap up a lot of threads to get to Rogue
mm
One.
right, and I briefly have seen this actor in something else. Halo did like a sci-fi movie
Uh,
on Netflix,
gotcha.
and that same actor shows up. He like keeps regenerating, and I'm just like, oh snap! I remember him. He was on Andor.
Mm.
Uh, and of course, like anyone around me wouldn't be able to recognize it that much because like they're not as encyclopedically like obsessed with Star Wars as I am.
Yeah. I feel like we all live that life in our everyday life out in the open.
I like how you said that. Like you make it sound like it's it's like being on the street.
So I think, yeah, kind of like, with us sort of engaging with the fandom versus kind of, outside of the fandom, it has a different feel to it.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Like I can't tell you how many people are just kind of like perplexed by the idea of me writing a Jar Jar fan novel
Hmm.
because like the only exposure is him in the movies.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know about him being a homeless clown in the book.
All right.
You
What
know,
about
they
Clone
never.
Wars?
Most of them probably haven't seen any Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Most people that I've talked to haven't checked out any Clone Wars. Like they know Clone Wars exists. They might know who Ahsoka is, but pretty much only because of the new TV show.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes as a Star Wars fan, you gotta realize, oh yeah, I'm kind of in a bubble.
Yeah, that's what I'm like too. And I think that's the thing. Like, I feel like people I know probably underestimate the greatness of Star Wars animated shows. And I
mm,
always, when I say to myself, when people underestimate the greatness of Star Wars animated shows, like Sky Talkers has a pretty good saying, look to the animation department for the future of Star Wars. And I'm like, bingo. That's what I
right.
got to say to people.
Like, my dad is a big Star Wars fan. He got me into the franchise. He introduced it
Mhm.
to me when I was very young. Probably when I was like 3. I watched the original trilogy on VHS. I would catch Phantom Menace on VHS, and then I would see Attack of the Clones. That may have been the first movie I saw in theaters.
Mm,
Not sure yet, but that was like when I was 4.
mm,
You know, and we're not far off in age, so it makes sense that
right.
we're like both
Mhm.
really inducted into the prequels into our formative years.
Yeah.
But there was a time period where my dad knew way more about Star Wars. If I had a question, I would go to him.
Mm,
Now he has to go to me.
yeah.
It is like completely flipped in that dynamic. Like just spewing out information that what I can. Like practically no one on the planet other than like obsessive like 0.001% know who can name one single scientist other than Galen Erso from Rogue One. But I
Hmm.
can. I know Flex Anopin. Random guy who's balding.
Yeah.
I know him. And it's almost sad, but it's also fun. Like we really get in the weeds into like the technicals of like remembering the exact J type of what this ship was.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's really any fandom that's quite like quite like that to that
Yeah.
extreme. I think the closest you can get is Star Trek.
Yeah, I could see
That's the
that
closest you
too.
can get. Maybe some what's it called? Like maybe some like big mecha anime fans. Maybe they're obsessed like that. But I
Yeah.
don't know.
I'm not
Like
sure
Star Wars has
either.
such a variety
Yeah.
in different
Like I know
worlds.
next to nothing about anime and manga.
Uh huh. Right.
Yeah, but I think like a lot of like franchises like Star Wars and Star Trek, you can kind of get into all those technical things, you know?
Mm.
Because
Yeah.
they kind of have that sort of approach, different alien races and all these planets, cultures, etc.
Yeah.
Do you think Stargate could almost have that sort of thing?
Not quite because Stargate, it's it doesn't have as much material
Yeah.
as Star Trek and Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm sure there's Stargate books. Battlestar Galactica is also
Yeah.
doesn't have a lot of series. Like it's pretty short. Like
Yeah.
you could probably get through it pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
But Star Wars, if you try to absorb everything, oh, that's going to be like a decade.
Yeah, and I feel like the same with Star Trek. It would probably take like a decade too to absorb
Yeah,
everything,
because they
like
keep
with all
coming
the
back with
movies and shows and everything.
exactly, and it's
And I
been
feel
running
like
since the '60s.
yeah, and that's the thing. I feel like Star Trek is like the grandfather of pop culture, and Star Wars is like the father of pop culture.
Mm,
As you
a
said,
bit.
with and
I would say that Star Wars is the true beginning of mass media franchises.
yeah,
Like where it like really comes to tipping point where the merchandise can outperform exponentially the movie.
yeah,
Now, if you want a fun fact of connecting the worlds of Star Trek and Star Wars, Leonard Nimoy, who was the original Spock actor,
hmm,
rest in peace. Did you know that he does the narration for the making of Return of the Jedi documentary?
no, I did not know that.
It very much seems like just get a star guy. Get one of the star guys. Hey, he'll do. He'll do. That's how it kind of feels. Uh, but anyway, I appreciate having you on my channel. We finally get to know each other better.
Hmm.
Just seeing back and forth on Twitter. Like you really don't get engaged to the kind of personality quite.
Yeah,
And congratulations on you being able to take some photos with Brie Larson, plays Captain Marvel, and you got Ashley Eckstein, who's the voice of Ahsoka. That's really dope that you got
yep,
that.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I've I've been to a couple cons, and the biggest people I've taken photos with are George Perez, rest in peace. If you don't know him, he's was big into the art creation of like the '80s Teen Titans.
Hmm.
He did the art for Avengers versus JLA, I think. Just like great prolific artist, very nice guy. But unfortunately, he did pass away a couple years ago. And I do have a drawing signed by him in
Hmm.
a comic signed by him. And I met Brian O'Halloran, who, if that name doesn't ring a bell, uh, I assume you've seen Clerks.
I haven't.
What?
But
Come on
sorry, man.
now.
I don't know, man. Maybe I'll get to it at some point.
Out of any of the Kevin Smith movies, uh, that's like the must watch, especially for a film fan. But he plays the character of Dante, and it was really cool to meet him. I even asked him, "Oh, when's the third one going to come out?" Because it took a while before the third one came out.
Hmm.
But yeah, good times. Having time to truly appreciate the different fandoms and how they intersect. Because I've never met a Star Wars fan that just likes Star Wars.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to say to the people? Advertising or just words of wisdom, words of caution?
Y- I'll advertise. You guys can follow me on Twitter, DanRS87, Instagram, JMD96_YT. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel, Jedi Master Daniel 96, and also follow me on Blue Sky, Jedi Master Daniel 96.
Thank you for having me. Other than saying thank you for watching and thank you for being on my channel, I will say call for a ceasefire now.
All right.